showing us the guns today. He is. There's no shirt, no suit today. Oh, baby, don't do it to him, Jose. Don't do it to him, man. Bro, this is exciting, dude. You know, we're doing a live stream, going live on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you guys have any comments, we can see your comments and we can answer questions. The intention today is to go over a specific objection that you're going to get all the time, right? So we've been doing these videos, and what's cool is you guys just respond in the comments and you let us know exactly what you want us to cover. And this one came up, Jose, and I know it excites you and excites me, because if you hear this, that means that you are this close to getting a contract signed. Okay, this close. And this one objection, I promise you, stops 90% of the people. And once you can figure it out, and once you can answer it with conviction and cool and calm and collected and rationally and practically, it will be the difference between getting, 3 listings a month to getting 5 to 6. That's how important this particular objection is. And Jose can tell you about his experience, because it changed radically once he really worked on this a lot. And the objection is, Jose, we really appreciate you coming over. You seem like a nice guy. We like your suit and your hair. We're just gonna think it over and we'll get back to you.
How many of you have ever received that at a listing presentation? I know that I have. And I know that early in my career, when I would get that, I would try different things. I would try like, hey, two heads are better than one. What is it that we have to think about? Or I would just ask them, like, is there something specifically that you have to think about? What I realized with this objection is that whenever you hear this, it's not their job to tell you, it's your job to figure out what is it that they have to think about. Because I would expect everybody to be completely transparent with you. And I would expect for people to be like, oh, like Jose, like these are the 3 things I need to think about. But for whatever reason, whenever you hear this, most of the people are typically vague. And that's where most people get stuck. Most people get stuck because they're like, hey, we like you. We just need a little bit of time to think about it. We need a little bit of time to pray on it. And if you don't know how to handle it, then at that point, it leads to you walking away from that listing appointment with no contract signed. However, if you dig a little bit deeper, you can actually handle this objection and really just put the cards on the table as well, too.
Yeah, and what I would propose or suggest, and Jose can confirm, is if you just say, okie dokie, get back to me, and walk out, the probability that contract is going to get signed drops probably by 50% for every day that goes by that they need to get back to you, right? So this is something that is critically important, and particularly in an environment that we're in right now, Jose, and I think you would agree, where inventory is still at record lows. I have a coaching client out in your neck of the woods over in West Hills, and he told me they have less inventory now than they did last year, which seems like wild, right? So you're going to be competing for these opportunities. So let's get into it. So somebody says to you, Jose, they're like, you know what? We appreciate you coming out, and we just want to think about it, pray about it, talking amongst ourselves, and then we'll get back to you maybe by Monday. Today's Friday. We'll get back to you on Monday.
So I would say typically I handle that in 2 ways, and I'm going to talk about the 2 ways real quick, and then I'll jump into it. So the first way that I typically handle it, if you are following the 5-step listing process, which means that you pre-qualified that appointment, in that pre-qualification, you should have some notes on what are some things that are like things that they're going to have to think about. So like if they in the pre-qual told you, hey, look, I want this price, and you presented a different price, or the market's recommending a different price, then that's probably one of the things that they're going to have to think about. If in your pre-qualification they said, oh, like we're looking for a lower commission, and when you show up, obviously you give the value proposition and you're like at a higher percentage than what they're saying, that could be one of the things that they think about. So the first way that I can handle it is I could just be very direct and say, look, Jose, I know that when we spoke over the phone, you told me that the commission was one of the things that was important to you. I know that you mentioned to me over the phone that you wanted to be at 4, we're at 6. Is this one of the items that we need to think about? And then basically address it right there on the spot. The other, you can do the same thing for price as well too. I know, hey, look, over the phone you mentioned to me this. That's a very direct way, and I've done that in the past. Usually I like to go through a discovery process where if Aaron says, hey, Jose, look, we like everything you have to say, I need to think about it, I'll say something like, it's a big decision, isn't it? What I'm doing right then and there is I'm aligning myself with them immediately with them. And then what you're going to see is you're going to see them nodding their head, and they're going to be like, you're right, Jose, it is a big decision, blah, blah, blah. And then I go into the pattern that is a discovery process. So I'll say, because it is such a big decision, Jose, what I have found is that when we break a big decision down into smaller decisions, it typically makes the bigger decision easier to make. Can I explain to you what I mean by that, Aaron?
Sure.
Okay. So there's really 3 small decisions that we would have to make here today. The first one is whether or not you actually want to sell the property. Now, based on our time spent together, based on our conversation, it sounds like that's not even the question. And it sounds like you're definitely making the move out to Arizona. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We're definitely going to move.
Great. So let me check that one off the list. So that's not an item we need to talk about. Great. The second small decision that we need to make is the price. Now, obviously, I would like for it to be more. I'm sure that you would too, Aaron. Are we pretty much in agreement that right about $900,000 is the price that the marketplace is recommending that we would need to be at in order to get this property sold?
Yeah, I mean, I told you before you got here, we were thinking a little bit more, having looked at this information. I mean, somewhere around there.
Got it. Now, here, I'm going to pause right here and I'm going to explain this to you guys. Most people would hear that and say, okay, he's good with the price, or just move on from that. What I'm hearing is something different. What I'm hearing is, hey, look, Jose, this is probably one of the things that we need to think about. And just so you know, when you go through the discovery process, usually the 3 things that they need to think about are price, that's one of them, it's commission, or they're interviewing somebody else, or they're considering somebody else for the job of selling the property. Those are usually the 3 things that will come up in this discovery process.
And I would propose is that when they are interviewing others, they want to find out another opinion with regards to price and commission. So it's really like variations of the same thing.
The price and the commission. Usually most of the time it's going to be price or commission. So what I heard right there is, hey, look, I'm not 100% comfortable with the price. Let's have a conversation about it. So what I would say, and this is the part where you need to watch body language and you need to like really pay attention to what they're saying, because they may say things like, I'm okay with it. Like, obviously I like for it to be more, but I'm okay with it. I would suggest that they're still telling you, hey, look, this is one of those things that we may need to talk about, even though they're saying I'm okay with it. And for whatever reason, people aren't straightforward in this conversation sometimes. So you need to be able to read between the lines.
Yeah. And I think that what people need to understand is there's a difference between presenting and closing. They're 2 different things, right? We present with logic or with emotion, you present with emotion, hey, here's what we're going to do, and all excitement. Once we get to this stage in the conversation, this is closing, and that's entirely different. And in order to be a really good closer, you have to be able to do what Jose's demonstrating, which is to flesh out what's really going on, because I can't handle it if I don't know what it is. And then 2, be very direct and straightforward. So as he was saying, where he was like, yeah, you know, if I know in pre-qual, let's say I asked them, is there anything else that you're going to be looking for from me as your agent that would be important to you? Like, yeah, we want to talk to you about the commission. So if we get to the end and they're like, you know, we want to think about it. Well, he knows with a high degree of probability that's on their mind. So he might say something like, well, I appreciate that. I know this is a big decision. You want to make sure you're making the best decision possible. I know in preparation for connecting, you mentioned to me that the professional fee was really important to you. Is that one of the things that you want to think about? And then be quiet. Because what you're doing there is you're being direct, but I'm fleshing it out. You see, I think a lot of you guys try to handle things without even knowing what it is. And there's nothing more kind of discouraging than thinking you handled the objection and it's not actually the objection. There's something else behind it. You know what I'm saying? Like you didn't even address the real thing. So you just have to be, again, direct and straightforward. And the way Jose's doing it is textbook.
Fleshing it out.
It's just fleshing it out. Like, what is it? Think about it like it's like a what came to mind is like a grenade, right? Where it's like, I want to flesh everything out. Like, what actually is it? Is it the price? Is it the commission? Is it, you're going to interview another agent because you think they're going to give you a better price or a commission, right? But you won't know this unless you go through this sequence. And when Jose said, listen, yeah, I know this is a big decision. You want to make sure you're making the best decision possible. That is acknowledgement. It's not agreement. Those are two different things. I'm not agreeing with you that, yeah, you should think it over for like a week. Instead, I'm acknowledging, hey, I get it. It's a big decision. You want to make sure you're making the best decision possible. And I find if you're going to make a big decision, if you break that down into smaller decisions, it usually makes the bigger one easier to make. So before I go, what I'd like to do is to go over with you the 3 decisions the seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market, in hopes that doing so can help you make the decision that you feel is best for you and your family, and whatever you decide, I'll support you. So when I say before I go, what is the seller thinking in their mind? This is done. But are we done? No, we're not done.
No, not at all.
Not at all, bro. Go ahead.
And then the other thing I was going to say is, and when Aaron gave the example of the grenade, the way I think about it is like, as soon as I hear I need to think about it, I think about game on. I need to figure out what it is that they need to think about. I'm going to go through a series of different layers to try to figure that out. And once I figure that out, then I could actually handle what it is that they need to think about. And if I handle it, there's a very good chance that I could walk away with a signed contract versus walking away without a signed contract. I remember being at a listing appointment and going over with a guy, and I go, very straightforward, hey, I get the feeling for whatever reason, because we talked about it on the phone, that the one thing you need to think about is probably the commission. He looks at me, he laughs at me, and he goes, how did you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like almost like Jedi level type of things. So I'm going to go back to the price. So if I notice any hesitation, if I notice like anything in his voice, anything in his body language, like the arms being crossed, I may say something like, look, Aaron, I get the feeling that one of the things that you need to think about is the price. I'm going to recircle back to this because I want to make sure that you feel absolutely comfortable and you feel absolutely confident with the price. And I want to make sure that you feel comfortable with that. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
So, and then even when I'm telling them, I want to make sure that you feel comfortable. I want to make sure that you feel confident. It's showing that I care, and I want them to be like, feel good about this decision, because it's a feeling sometimes. Do I feel good about listing my home with you? Do I feel good about the price that I'm going to put the property on the market at? Do I feel good about this conversation,
Exactly. And people don't buy products and services. They buy feelings and identities. So that's why we want them to feel good. And you can even say that. So like, look, I'm sensing that it seems to be perhaps one of the things you want to think about is the price. And I want us both to feel good about what we're doing. Otherwise, we won't do it. So if you did decide to hire me, I want us both to be on the same page. So would it be okay if I went over that again with you, so that way you felt comfortable and confident? Would that be okay? And they're like, yeah, that's fine. So, we looked at this information very closely. We saw what's active on the market and not selling. We've seen what's sold and closed most recently. If you were a buyer, not a seller, because I know those hats are different. And if you were going to buy this place all over again and you saw that the last 3 closed transactions in the community was 950, 942, and 935. I mean, honestly, as a buyer, where do you think you would feel comfortable making an offer that you believe would be reflective of fair market value? So instead of you going into, this is what it is and this is why it needs to be, or my favorite, specifically, what causes you to believe, like, you're just going to get defensive. You know what I'm saying? So instead of that, put it on them and then be quiet. And they'll be like, well, yeah, I mean, I guess I see your point. I just wanted more. It's like, yeah, trust me, I do too. We get compensated more money the more we help you sell it for. At the same time, I'd much rather earn your business with integrity, being honest and straightforward about what's reasonable and realistic, versus promising you something I know is not going to happen and not be able to deliver. I mean, that is what you're looking for from an agent, isn't it? And they're like, yeah, well, I mean, you found what you're looking for. We're definitely moving in the right direction there. So do you feel comfortable and confident in terms of where we're going to get started off at? And they're like, well, let's say they hesitate some more. You're like, okay, well, we have a couple options at our disposal and you're the boss. Whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. Okay. One option is we start higher than that. The logic is I can always come down. I can't go back up. And I want to leave room to negotiate. Now, when you say that out loud, they're all going to go like this, because that's what they're thinking. And then, and you're like, yeah, it's not a bad strategy. Now, what most of you guys do is make it bad. Don't do that. You say like, hey, it's not a bad strategy. It just has some particular challenges. So what I'd like to do is to go over with you some of the challenges so that way you're clear, and you can make a decision you feel is best. The first challenge is that it usually takes longer. We've seen here your neighbors have been asking those prices and, it hasn't been working. You know what I mean? They've been on the market for 65 days and that hasn't sold. Let me ask you this. What would happen if we were still here 65 days from now and the home wasn't sold? What would that mean for you and your family? Quiet. Again, getting them to self-discover instead of me telling them, right? Then the second challenge is one of the first questions that buyers ask me when they come inside of a property is how many days has this been on the market? Now, why do you think they ask me that? Well, they want to see if other people want it. Exactly. So there's perceived value that's tied to time. So as time goes by, do you think the perceived value stays the same or do you think it goes down? Well, I guess it goes down. Yeah. So we start to see offers come in less and less. And you don't want that, do you? You're like, well, no. Okay. So that's the challenge with that strategy. The second strategy is we position the property very competitively. By that, what I mean is very close to what's sold and closed most recently. And what ends up happening in that environment is we get multiple people interested. And even now with interest rates the way that we are, we can get multiple offers, right? 4, 5, 6 offers. And I'm curious, if you're negotiating, who ends up winning in a negotiation, the seller or the buyer when there's 5, 6 offers on the table? Well, the seller. And why is that? Well, because, they have something that people want to buy. Exactly. And you get the best terms and the best conditions. Now that is what you want, right? Yeah. So again, either one of these options are okay. My question is based on what you're looking to accomplish and why, which one do you think would serve you best? Now, let's say here, Jose, they say, well, we met with this other agent and they told us that we could get $975. Where would you go from there?
Got it. Is it okay if I finish off the pattern, just the 3-step pattern? That way they can, and then we're going to go over the 975,000 price. So what I did on that pattern is I isolated so I said, hey, I'm going to recircle back the price. I'm not handling it right there on the spot because you want to go through the 3 things because you don't even know if there's one more thing that could be an issue. So I'm going to say something like, okay, look, I'm going to put I get the feeling that one of the things that you want to talk about is the price. I'm going to circle back to the price because I want to make sure that you feel absolutely confident. The last small decision that sellers typically need to make is the agent selection of who's going to help them sell the property. So obviously we've met in person. You've read some of our reviews online. We've gone over some of the marketing plan already as well too. Am I the type of agent that you want fighting tooth and nail to help you get every single dollar out of this property? And at that point, they're either going to say, well, we're not sure. They're going to say yes, or they're going to say no. If they say yes, then at that point, you're like, okay, great. It sounds like you've already decided that you want me to help you with the sale. It also sounds like you have some concerns about the price. And if we're able to come to an agreement on the price, it sounds like there probably wouldn't be any of the reasons we couldn't move forward today. Is that correct?
And what I want everybody to hear what he just did there. So it's like, it's a flow. So I know what the 3 most common objections are going to be. You know what I mean? So I'm like, when we're going through those 3 small decisions underneath, the first is, if they're going to sell, sometimes people see what's realistic. The marketplace shows them, well, something different than what they want or need in order to make the move happen. And they decide to do something else, maybe rent it or hold on to it. Now, is that something, appreciate you, David. Is that something that, is that an option for you to perhaps not sell this property and still make the move happen? And they're like, no, it's not an option. Like, okay, so we've made that decision. The second decision is the price. And we kind of went down that path, which is like, hey, I'm imagining you would like it to be more, and I sure would as well. At the same time, having looked at this information, seen what's active on the market, not selling, seen what's sold and closed most recently, are we in agreement that the market, not you, if you heard Jose, that's what he did, the market is showing us somewhere around, I don't know, 550 seems to be reasonable. 750 seems to be reasonable. Now, if they do object, like he said, well, the other agent said they do it for they could get 795. It's like, okay, so it sounds like we can revisit that. And I'll come back to that in a moment because I want you to feel comfortable. If we do decide to proceed together, I want you to feel comfortable with what we're doing. And then the third decision that a seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market is who's going to help them. And you strike me to be very straightforward and to the point. I'm the same way. So based on our time spent together today, based on the conversation we had in preparation for connecting, based on what you've seen online, our track record and reviews, do you feel comfortable and confident with me that I can help you sell this home? And I would look out for your best interest and be quiet. You're basically asking them to their face, are you going to hire me? Like, do you feel comfortable hiring me? And I want to get that out of the way. Now, once we've done that, now we know that we have to revisit the price. So what Jose did is something called a set aside. He did it very quickly, but I want to point it out to you guys. A set aside is so if I'm hearing you correctly, you feel comfortable and confident with me. You've decided you'd like for me to help. And once we can come to an agreement in terms of where to get started off at price-wise, seems like we could go ahead and get started. Is that right? That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to ask a question. So it seems like, you feel comfortable and confident with me that I can help. So let me ask you this. If we come to an agreement in terms of where to get started off at price-wise, which I know we will, like it's not going to be a reason we don't do business. Do you think there'd be any other reason why we couldn't get started today? Now, what I'm doing right now is another flesh out. I'm dropping another grenade. Is there anything else? Because maybe if you notice, we hadn't talked about commission yet. So that might still be lingering. So it's like, is there any other reason why we couldn't get started today? And then let's say they're like, well, I just wanted to talk to you about the length of the agreement, or I want to talk to you about the commission. Okay. So it sounds like if we can handle those two for you, then there's a good chance that we'll be able to get started. So what I'll do is I'll just systematically, we'll have those conversations. And, if we come to a meeting of the minds, which I'm sure we do, I have all of the appropriate paperwork with me. I'm not prepared to go to work for you today. Fair enough? Fair. And then you systematically, now you handle price. Now, once you handle the price, which Jose will do now, what I would do is once we're in agreement, I would say, great, do you have any other questions before we take care of the appropriate paperwork? Even though they ask me about the commission, because 30% of the time they'll be like, no, and then you'll just proceed, right? Well, but then they're like, wait, we still want to talk about the commission, and then you can go down that route and handle that.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is like, what happens in that scenario if they say, like, I'm okay, like, yes, I'm selling, yes, I'm okay with the price. You don't notice any hesitation, even with body language, and they say, yes, I want you to list the property with me. At that point, it's like, okay, it sounds like you've made the three decisions that most sellers like typically make. Can I make a recommendation to you?
Yeah.
I did bring all the paperwork with me. I can explain all the paperwork with you. You signing this paperwork is going to allow me to get started on the pictures. It's going to allow me to get started with the cleaning lady. It's going to allow me to get started with the lockbox. It's going to allow me to get started with the sign.
Yep.
Do you have any other questions before we go ahead and take care of the paperwork?
Perfect.
Or if you still get the feeling that the commission is out there, you could say something like, okay, so it sounds like you're in agreement on that. You're in agreement on this. Here's a couple of other things that sellers typically have to think about. Do you have any questions about what we're going to do to market and sell your property? No, I don't. Great. Do you have any questions about the professional fee? Yes, I do. Okay. What are the questions? And then boom, now you start handling that aspect of it.
Exactly. And then you can address it, and then you close. So we're you know what I call this? I learned this from somebody who was in the military, which is like you clear the room by room. So we're going room by room. We're clearing each room. Like, is it price? Let's stay here until we address it. Okay, cool. Is it commission? Let's stay here until we address it. Right. And what you did there too, I would do it the same way. I just might do it a little bit more playfully, which is like, well, it sounds like you've made all the decisions that a seller needs to make prior to putting a home on the market. May I make a suggestion? And they're like, yeah. You're like, let's do this with a big smile. Let's do this. I mean, you're here. I'm here. I have the appropriate paperwork with me. We can have the photographer out here by tomorrow and have it up and active on the market by Tuesday. How's that sound? And that's when they look at each other like, what do you think, honey? And I'm like, well, I think he could do it. And I'll be playful. I'll be like, yeah, I agree with him, man. Like, let's get started. Because you're breaking tension when you're being playful. When I'm like, let's do this. You know what I mean? Because it's a little tense situation, and humor and like it just breaks tension. It's playful.
Even then, you reminded me of like what I typically do. So I'll say something like, can I make a recommendation? Look, Aaron, I'm ready to go to work for you, man. I'm excited about this property. I love everything about the home. I love the crown molding. I love the baseboard. I love the flooring that we have on it. I'm 100% confident that I can sell it. Aaron, all I would need is the opportunity. Would you give me the opportunity to work with you? And then I smile.
Yeah.
And the reason I like that is people like to give people opportunities, and it's a way of saying like, hey, look, can we work together? And it's also like a little bit of flattery, you know, and a little bit of like, hey, look, Aaron, I love everything about the home. Like, I love the baseboard, I love the flooring, I love the kitchen, I love the obviously the decor, everything about it. Aaron, I'm 100% confident that I can sell this property. All I would need is for you to give me an opportunity to help you. Would you give me the opportunity to help you sell this property? And then that's the point where they look at each other and they're like, what do you think? Okay, Jose, we're ready to go.
So, and the point is that most people don't ask. I was on one of our group coaching calls, Jose, with the Elite Builders Nation, coast to coast. Did you see this cup, bro? God damn, bro. Come on, bro. So, and what I was telling them is like, knock and the door shall open. Ask and you shall receive, but it requires you to ask just straight up. And that's what Jose and myself are demonstrating, right? So there is a track that we're following. Okay. I'm clearing the room. Is it price? Is it kind of like, are you going to sell? Because sometimes, you know, like that might be it. Maybe we decide to do something different because the marketplace isn't in alignment with what our expectations are. Number 2, is it price? And number 3, like, is it me? Then from there, maybe perhaps the commission thing pops up. And then if it does, we can handle that. And we can use a set aside, which is if we can come to an agreement on that today, would there be any other reason why we couldn't get started right now? And then just be quiet. Now, what I'm also aware of is with this like thinking over thing, after I go through that track and let's say there's still a little, like a little hemming and hawing, like, well, you know, we think we still want to talk to the other agent. I'm not the kind of person that makes decisions quickly. And I'm like, okay. And I do, I really respect that, you know. What's interesting is that one of the reasons why people like you hire me, Jose, is because I get contracts signed. I mean, that's what you would expect me to do as your agent, isn't it? And they're like, well, yeah. It's like, well, and, you know, imagine like I had let's say you decided to hire me and a buyer came into the property, right? And you overheard, because for some reason you were there, they were like, oh my God, I think I want to make an offer. And you're like, oh, this is great. And then you heard them say, oh, we think we want to make an over full price offer. And you're like, oh my God, like Aaron's amazing. But then you heard them say to me, Jose, we just want to think it over. We want to go look at a couple more properties and we'll get back to you. As your agent that you've hired me based on my skill of getting contracts signed, would you want me to be like, okay, and let them go look at other properties and perhaps purchase another one? Or would you want me to very patiently and professionally with a very big smile on my face proceed to ask them questions, which is to help them to make a great decision, not to go look at those other properties, but instead to write that over full price offer on your home? What would you expect me to do as your agent? And then be quiet. And Jose's going to be like, well, I want you to get the contract signed. Just by you saying that demonstrates that you're beginning to realize that I am displaying that very skill for you right now. You see, I am not afraid to ask you to make a great decision, which is to hire me today, just like I'm not going to be afraid to ask a buyer to write an over full price offer and not go look at other homes. That's what you'd expect from your agent, isn't it? And they'll be like, well, yeah. And then you'll say, you know what the great news is, Jose? And they're like, what's that? Again, with a smile. You found what you're looking for. I mean, let's go ahead and take care of the appropriate paperwork. Do you really want to spend another 3 hours of your life listening to agents? And they'll be like, not really. It's like, okay, so let's just go ahead and take care of the appropriate paperwork and get started. And they're like, okay. Now you can also use like a performance guarantee too, that if at any time they feel like you're not doing your job, they can, fire you and not pay any money to do it. But that right there, Jose, I've listed, I don't know, like so many properties getting to that portion where it's like, hey, one of the reasons why you're hiring me is based on my ability to get contracts signed, right? Because I think for some reason it's interesting because we're salespeople, but I think most agents, A, aren't like committed to becoming like a world-class salesperson, but B, they have this like aversion to sales, which is so interesting.
It's got a negative stigma sometimes. People like relate sales to like car salesmen or just different things. Like, and it's funny because even like when you post sales things on social media, like you will get 50% of the comments being like, this is gold. And the other 50% is like, you're a scumbag. Like,
oh yeah, you're a
like,
dirtbag.
I would never work with you. I will never, ever do this with you. But really what sales is you're helping people move the process forward, and you're asking a series of questions to see if you can be of service. Not only that, but when you're 100% confident that you are the best option for them and that you're going to do the best job, you actually owe it to yourself and you owe it to them to be able to go through this, because if not, they could end up with somebody that doesn't do a good job for them. They could end up with somebody who basically doesn't care about what price they end up selling the property for, or somebody that doesn't provide good service. You know, so there's a lot of different things.
It's interesting because I had a mentor, and he said to me one time, like somebody came up to him and he was like, "Hey, you know, I have a hard time like asking people to like, you know, do stuff and asking people to make decisions." And the mentor said to him, "I really feel bad for you." He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You don't believe in your product enough that you would ask people to buy it.
That you're the best option for them."
Yeah, which is wild, right? So like I'm helping them to make a really good decision, because to your point, you know, I know that in our industry, like in order to become an agent, you just need to have a C on a test, you have $1,000 and not be a felon yet. And the vast majority of agents, and I mean this lovingly, they do like 4 transactions all year long. So by me and Jose helping somebody to make a decision, i.e. closing, we're actually ensuring that they get the best service possible, right? We're actually ensuring that they're going to have a good experience.
Now, here's the last thing I would say as it relates to that. And obviously we can go into pricing, but the pricing conversation is very similar to like a price, like and this is something you taught me, like the whole pricing conversation is a conversation, like it's like the CMA, and there's different layers to the pricing conversation. So I don't know with the pricing conversation, if we want to go like just give them a rough overview of that, and then do an entire video on the pricing portion of the presentation, like both when you present price and at the very end if you have to revisit it. But what I was going to say is, if for whatever reason, like let's say I flush everything out and they're still like, "Look, Jose, like I still need to think about it," I will not leave that presentation without presenting the marketing plan of action. And I know Aaron's kind of like not, didn't really have to do that. I've had clients that I go through the flushing of the objection. They're like, "Look, Jose, I still need to think about it." Then I go over the plan of action. And then once I go over the plan of action, I've heard comments like, "Jose, look, before you went over the plan of action, I wasn't really sold on you 100%. Now I'm actually very confident that you're the right person. Still give me a day or two and I'll make my final decision." Or they'll say something along the lines like they'll get excited about it and it'll give me an opportunity to close again. So I'll go over the marketing plan of action. I'll say something like, "Look, Jose, I'm not going to go over all 22 steps. I think by now you have a pretty good idea as to what I'm going to do to market and sell your property. Once again, Jose, I'm excited to go to work for you. I'm excited about representing you on the sale of this property. I believe in this home. I'm confident I can help you get top dollar. All I would need is the opportunity. Would you give me the opportunity to work with you?" And I shut up. And then at that point, they look at each other and they're like, "Okay, got it." Or I may say something along the lines like, if, for example, like they're interviewing other agents, I may say something along the lines like, "Look, Jose, I know that you're going to interview other agents. I want to make sure that if you're going to compare other agents, that you're comparing apples to apples versus apples to oranges. What I like to do next, if it's okay with you, is I like to go over step by step what I'm going to do to be able to market and sell your property. Is that okay with you?"
Yeah.
And then what I did, and the reason I had to do this in my market is, remember when I told you that I went on like 100 listing presentations, I only took about 5 of them. Yep. I would ask them for feedback every single time. I would be like, "Look, like I'm looking to grow my business. Obviously I'm looking to improve. Like, would you mind sharing with me, like, what was the reason why you decided to go with somebody else?" And a lot of times it was like, "Oh, the other agent said that they had buyers from China," or the other agent said that
Bro, that's so true. In my neck of the woods, it's buyers from Venezuela. Yours, it's China. It's fantastic.
Yeah, they said that they had access to cash buyers. They said that they had access to buyers in Los Angeles, which we all know that like different agents will say a lot of different things. And the reality is that if it's marketed correctly and priced correctly, it will sell. But like all of these agents are saying all of these different things. And what I realized is that I was losing not because I wasn't as good of an agent or because I wasn't going to do a good enough job. It was because I wasn't presenting what I was going to do to help them market and sell the property. And I wasn't selling myself enough as it relates to the service. Now, in days, I have to sell myself a little bit less just because of the reputation I have in town.
Hey, because he's kind of a big deal. Yeah.
But back even when I started, and still you'd be surprised how many people still don't know who I am or don't know the services that we have to offer. So whenever I know that that's the case, I'm going to go over that and I'm going to present that to them. And we can do a separate video on the marketing plan of action, but that's a different way of handling it. And then recircling back saying, look, I'm ready to go to work for you. All I need is the opportunity. Would you give me the opportunity to work for you?
So the key thing I want people to take away is there is a track that you follow, right? And we're trying to flesh out what it actually is. Once we flesh it out and we isolate it to either one or two things like price and commission or price and length of the agreement or whatever it is, then you do a set aside. So let me ask you this, because you strike me to be someone who's super straightforward. I'm the same way. So if we can come to an agreement on those two issues, do you think there'd be any other reason why we couldn't proceed today? And then be quiet, right? And let's say they're like, well, no, I don't think so. It's like, okay, great. So let's go over them one at a time.
You start handling them.
And then we'll take it from there. And you handle them one at a time. Right?
And you guide them. You're like, okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the price.
Right.
And then you start handling the whole price thing.
And,
like,
and then when you go into that, again, it's how you do it. So it's not like, well, what causes you to believe? It's like, so the first thing we'll talk about is price. And I want to be clear, price is a strategy in an attempt to get the most. So we'll go over the strategies that you have because I want you to feel comfortable with the one we end up choosing. And whatever you decide, I am going to support you 100%. It puts them in the driver's seat. You can give them the information and they make a decision. Now, let's say they decide in this conversation, hey, I want to start a little bit higher than that. I know the other one started higher and I know they're on the market for 60 days, but it would make me feel better on the inside just to give it a try. And you're like, okay, cool. Let me ask you this, Jose. Let's say that we see after like 2 to 3 weeks tops that the marketplace isn't responding favorably. So in other words, we're getting showings and no offers or very few showings, if any at all. At that point, would you be prepared to make an adjustment? And then be quiet, because what I'm doing is upfront managing that expectation, right? What most agents do is they say like, I think, I believe we can get, and then they back themselves into a corner. And then when it comes time to ask for a reduction, they'll say like, well, you told me, Jose, you know what I'm saying? So let's say they're like, yeah, I'd be okay with that. Okay, great. So I'll make a note of that. So it seems like we're in agreement there. So the next thing to talk about is the professional fee. So I'm curious, what were you thinking? And then be quiet. The reason why I ask, what were you thinking before I go into a conversation? Because I want to know what they're thinking. You know what I'm saying? I remember being, I had a person on my team at the time and her brother wanted to sell his property. And he's her older brother. So I knew as the older brother, he's going to like try to like dick. So I'm like, I'm going on that appointment with you. Right. So we go on the appointment. I get them to self-discover where they need to position it at. And it was great advice. They ended up selling it for $10,000 above the asking price. But we get to the end. And he's like, I'm like, well, do you have any questions before we take care of the paperwork? He's like, no, I don't think so. But, are you going to give me the family discount on the commission? And in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe like a point. Like, I don't know what he's expecting. So I was like, yeah, sure. For you, we could do that. What were you thinking? And he's like, well, last time we did a deal, my sister gave me $1,500 towards closing cost. So I did one of Jose's patented moves, which I was like, because if I'm like, yes, people, they're going to be like, shit, I should ask for more. So instead, you're just like, normally we don't do that. But for you, we can make that happen. Let's go ahead and take it. And then Jose sticks his hand out, like, shake hands. Let's go ahead and
we got a deal.
Let's take care of the appropriate paperwork and you can proceed.
Even for the price, so whenever I said, okay, great. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the price. You can say something like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
About the price. And then they're like, well, to be honest, I was really hoping for like $900,000.
Yeah, and that when that happens, you have to refrain from laughing out loud or making a face or being like, like, you know what I'm saying? You have to make your body language like neutral. So let's say they're like, I was really hoping for 900. And you're like, yeah, you know, trust me, I'd love to get you 900 because we get compensated more money the more we help you sell it for. I guess I'm curious though, having seen those 3 closed sales at 750, 745, and 737. I guess if you were a buyer, do you think you would offer $150,000 more than the 3 most recent sales? And then and let them self-discover. And he'll be like, well, probably not. Okay, don't you think most buyers would feel pretty similar to you? Yeah. So, you know, it seems like we're in agreement that the marketplace is showing us somewhere around that 750 number is where we need to be. So the question is just how do we get there? And there's a couple strategies towards that end, and we can go over those strategies. Now, let me ask you this. If, let's say, the marketplace, the most they're willing to bear was 750, I did a net sheet for you, you would actually net, you know, 525 from the sale. Would that allow you to make this move happen? Never is that enough. It's never fucking enough. Would that allow you to make this move happen? Now, Jose is in a position where he has to make a decision. He's like, well, I guess I could do it. Just a little bit less than what I was thinking. Okay. You know, and I know we all want more unless it's around our waist, right? I'm like, yeah. Right? Again, breaking tension. And it's like, okay, so the only reason you would do that is because you were sufficiently motivated. If you break the word motivation down, it means motive to take action. So refresh my memory. Tell me again why you're doing this. And they're like, well, this, and this. And is that still important to you? If you knew that you had to wait 4 to 5 years before you could sell it again at a price you felt more comfortable with, would that be acceptable? It's not acceptable. Okay, so then we have 2 choices. One is we can position the property and get you that, you know, net that we just discussed and help you get one step closer to the move. Or you could just wait. Which do you think makes sense for you and your family? Quiet. Well, I guess we could proceed and just get on the market. Okay, so now we just need to discuss strategy because there's 2 strategies on how to get to that particular number. And then we go over the high, the low, and let them make a decision. So what I'm noticing is happening here as we have this conversation, Jose, like we're digging into like those particular objections, and we can do a separate video on those particular objections. What I don't want to get lost for everybody is the track. Somebody tells you they want to think about it. You in your head like need to be like, okay, I am this close to getting a contract signed. Because that means the fact that they're thinking about it means that they're going to do something.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm this close. So then I need to follow that track. You know, it's a big decision. I get it. You want to make sure you're making the best decision possible. So I'm acknowledging, not agreeing, I'm just acknowledging. Then I find that if you take that big decision, you break it down into small ones and make the bigger one easier to make. So before I go, which alleviates the pressure, they think we're done, which we're not done. What I'd like to do is to go over with you the 3 decisions a seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market in hopes that doing so can help you to make the decision that you feel is best for you and your family. Whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. So again, no high pressure, right? Then you go through the track. The first decision is if you're going to sell. Sometimes, you know, when we look at this information, it's not in alignment with sellers' expectations or what they need from a net number perspective to actually move. Now, based on what you shared with me via telephone, I don't believe that's the case. You're definitely moving. Is that right? Like, I should know that before I go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm definitely moving. Okay. The second decision we need to make is the price. And I'm imagining you would like it to be more. I sure would as well. Again, with a smile. You would like it to be more. I sure would as well, because we get compensated more money the more we help you sell it for. At the same time, are we in agreement that the market, not you, the market is telling us somewhere around blank seems to be reasonable? And then be quiet. And like Jose said, I'm paying attention. I'm listening. I'm noticing if it's like this. I'm noticing if they're looking at each other. Like I'm noticing if there's a wincing in their face. Like I'm just noticing. And if they're like, yeah, you know, that seems to be reasonable, then we can proceed. But if you see like this or like that, it's like, okay, well, I'm kind of sensing, and I could be wrong based on your body language, that might be something that you want to think about. So we can circle back on that because I want you to feel good about what we're doing. Otherwise, we won't do it. And then the third decision that a seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market is who's going to help them, right? And you strike me to be very straightforward and to the point. I'm the same way, Jose. So based on our conversation in preparation for connecting, based on the information we sent over to you, you checked us out online, saw track record and reviews, based on our conversation today, do you feel comfortable and confident with me that I can sell your home and I would look out for your family's best interest? Because you're basically asking them, am I the type of person you want to work with? And they're either going to say yes, no, or maybe. If they're like, yeah, it's like, okay. So then it sounds like you've made all 3 decisions the seller needs to make prior to putting their home on the market. May I make a suggestion? Yeah. So again, smile. Let's do this. I mean, you're here, I'm here, I have the appropriate paperwork. We can get started, have it up and active on the market by next Tuesday. How does that sound? Right? If they did say like the price, or if there was something else, then I could say, okay, great. So it sounds like you've decided you feel comfortable and confident with me that I can help. So there's just a few things for you to get clarity, and I want you to feel good about. So if we could come to an agreement on price, or if we can come to an agreement on professional fee, whatever they say, do you think there'd be any other reason we couldn't get started right now? And again, that's a set aside. So I want you to imagine like there's an impediment between me and Jose. It's like a boulder. And what I'm doing is I'm picking, so you can look at that cup again. Let's go. I'm picking up this boulder and I'm moving it over here. And then I say, hey, if we could do that thing over there, can we do this? So like from a mental perspective, I am literally removing the obstacle and putting it over here. And then we talk about it like it's no longer between us. It's like, so if we can handle that thing over there, is there any reason why we couldn't do this? And Jose makes a decision on the spot. He's like, well, no, I don't think so. Okay. And then if it is price or is commission, you can ask a simple question. What were you thinking? Because that'll guide where it goes from there, right? I think a lot of people, Jose, they start to just like
blabbing. Yeah.
Blabbing. And that never goes well. Because oftentimes you'll start to blab and then you'll give them something they weren't even thinking about. And they'll be like, and it'll just, it'll become like a whole thing. So instead, just like, hey, tell me, what were you thinking? And if like they say, if you say that on price and they give like a ridiculous number, then you can handle it the way I just demonstrated. If they say, well, the other agent told us they do it for 4%, right? Okay, great. Now I know where to go from there, and I can handle that, right? So the main purpose of this live and of this video is for everybody to understand the sequence, like the track. Because once I have the track now, really with separate videos, Jose, let's say they say it's the commission. Great. We have a video on how to handle it.
We can do a whole video on the commission.
Yeah. Let's say it's the price. We do a whole video on the price.
A whole video on the price.
So in other words, I want everybody to realize like first I have to understand the track, but then I have to have this like kind of cache in my mind, like of like these drawers that I can open up. So when they say to me like, hey, it's commission, I'm like, boop, open up the drawer. Here's the answer. They say it's price, boop, open up that. Here's the answer. And then after I answer it, it's like, okay, so it seems like we're in agreement with regards to price. Do you have any other questions before we take care of the appropriate paperwork? And I close. Right? So what we're really attempting to do here, guys, is to teach you the track. But with the track, objections will come up in the track. And I still need to know how to handle those. Right? And handle them individually. And then once I handle them, then I can ask, a closing question is like, do you have any other questions before we take care of the appropriate paperwork?
Yep. And then even then, like once you know the track as well too, we can do separate videos on price. We can do separate videos on commission. We can do a separate video on the plan of action. I'm not leaving that presentation without presenting the plan of action personally, because that will allow them to get more sold on what we have to offer and the services that could benefit them. Yeah. And even if I walk away without the listing at that point, I'm putting everything I can to put myself in the best position to be able to get that listing.
And here's my question. So, because we can see people's comments and stuff, which is pretty dope. How is this different? What me and Jose are demonstrating to you, how is this different from what you're currently doing when somebody says, I want to think about it? Are you just like, okay, get back to me? And then you go home to your significant other, you're like, I think I got that one. We really connected. They went to UF and I went to UF and they have a puppy and we have a puppy. I think we're going to get it. And then somebody like me, Jose, comes in, handles it, goes down the track, closes and calls you and is like, hey, just want to let you know we listed the property. You see what I'm saying? So drop in the comments if this is different at all in what you guys are currently doing.
It's funny because I called you, Aaron, and I said this story, and I went to a listing presentation maybe like a month ago. And I called the agent, hey, look, I'm on my way. I'll be there like in 10 minutes. And they were like, we actually have an agent that's here right now that is in the process of going to be leaving. So just if you run into her, just so you know that she's going to be there. And then I get there. I can't tell who the seller is because I haven't met her. There's 2 women there. And then I kind of see who the agent is. She goes, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to give you something. And she hands her a bag of cookies to the seller. And when I saw that, I was like, did she really just hand her some cookies? And then when she was walking away, I made a comment. I'm like, can I get some cookies too? Because she was like dodging me, like avoiding me. I don't know why. I was like, can I get some
I know
cookies
why.
too?
Because she knows you're there to take the damn listing.
And then what ended up happening is that I ended up meeting with the owners. We end up going over the price, commission, marketing, whatever we did. And they get to the end of it. They look at each other and they're like, yeah, we're ready to sign the contract. And I just thought to myself, like that other agent, instead of like learning what to say, how to say it, she could have gone a contract signed had she done it before I got there. But instead, her thing was like, hey, look, let me give her cookies. And that was like the first time I've heard about stuff like this happening, but that was like the first time I witnessed it with my eyes.
You called me
like,
you called me in shock. You were like, bro, is this what people do? I'm like, yeah, dude. Like, like that's your strategy. Like, I'm just gonna wow you with my cookies, and then like because
or be super nice to you, or try to find some commonality. Like you have a dog, I have a dog. So instead of doing that, let's learn what to say. Let's learn how to say it. Let's learn how to recognize patterns. And if we do that, we will get paid more often, which means you have more money to invest into assets that provide you with residual, which ultimately provides you with freedom. That way, if you ever decide to step away from the business, you can be in a position to live the life that you want without having to do the daily activities of selling real estate.
Yeah, 100%. It reminds me of a story where a guy on the team, he went and met with a seller, and he knew the seller was in from out of town. So he thought it would be nice to bring him like a gift card so he could get something to eat. And as soon as he told me that on the car, Jose, I'm like, did you get the contract signed when you were there? He was like, nope. I'm like, he's going to list with somebody else. He's like, nah, bro, I really don't think so. Like, we connected, and like, he was really appreciative of the gift card I gave him. I'm like, look at me. He is going to list the property with somebody else. 2 days later, he calls me heartbroken. It's like, he listed with somebody else. I'm like, yeah, I told you, bro. Like,
because he didn't present his value proposition. He didn't flush out what was important. They didn't have the conversations that needed to be had, and they listed with somebody else because somebody else had those conversations with that owner.
That's exactly right. And they had the kind of intestinal fortitude or courage to be straightforward, be like, hey, what is it? I remember too, another example, I went and it was a for sale by owner, and it was an investor, and the property was occupied. So we had to like go in real quick. He wanted me to look at it. So I go in real quick. I look at it, and then we get outside, and he's like, okay, like, get back to me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm like, well, you're really busy. I'm really busy. Like, let's just go ahead and take care of this. Let's go ahead and take care of this right now. So we go outside, and we're on his car. Cause remember, there's tenants there. So we're on the roof of his car. I present to him, and I was like, hey, I'm curious. You're an investor. He's like, yeah, I already have an agent, that we work with all the time. I said, I get that. I'm curious. Are you interested in creating a relationship with an agent who does a lot of business with probates and estates, as I know that those could be good deals for you? Piqued his interest. Then he was like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, it's a symbiotic relationship. Like, I can help you here. And then obviously, if we have any deals or opportunities, I can let you know. Do you think that would be helpful or useful in some way? He's like, well, yeah, maybe. I'm like, okay, great. And we go into the presentation, and he signed a damn contract, and I left. And all because I had the courage and the intestinal fortitude to be like, what do you mean? Like, you're here, I'm here. I know you're super busy. Like, let's just go ahead and take care of this right now. And he's like, okay. And I found a way to get that would pique his interest. But then I also closed him because he was telling me, no, like, I already have an agent. And I was like, all right, well, I mean, you want an agent, somebody who does a lot of business in this geographic area working for you to find deals. I mean, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours, like that sort of thing. I'm sure you didn't get to where you are by not creating relationships with people. Did you? He's like, no. I'm like, what the great news is? He's like, what's that? I'm like, you have an awesome relationship standing in front of you right now. May I make a suggestion? Yeah, let's do this, man. I have the paperwork with me. Okay, he signed it right on the hood, dude. Like, leave.
Same thing here. Yeah. And it's the thing, like, it's knowing what to say in different circumstances, because I've used that line with investors, like, hey, look, like, no, I've already got an agent that I work with all the time. Well, look, I know that different agents can bring you different deals, like, are you open to establishing new relationships with somebody who has access to this, or somebody who has access to off-market opportunities, or something like that. So it's like, it's learning what to say in all the different scenarios. And once you do that, then you've got the playbook already started. So that's our goal here at Elite Builders. Our goal is to teach you what to say, how to say it, what's working in today's marketplace so that you can get more contracts signed and you can live a better life.
Yeah, because eventually, guys, you have to speak to somebody. Eventually. You know what I'm saying? I don't care how you get your leads, whether you do pay-per-click, whether you do media, whatever it is, eventually you're going to have to talk to somebody. And most people teach mindset because they can't teach tactics. They can't teach you specifically what to say and how to say it. And the reason that they can't is because they haven't actually sold real estate in high volume. So me and Jose have. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be with you. Hope you guys enjoyed this stream. It's going to be on YouTube as well. And if you like this video, be sure to watch the next one. Let's go. Let's grow.